Guys, what's going on? I hope you guys are well. I hope you guys are staying safe. I hope everything's good wherever you are. So guys, we're going to break this video down into two parts. So Timothy Bradley says that Canelo Alvarez, if he was to fight Gennady Golovkin in the trilogy, he believes that Canelo Alvarez would beat Gennady Golovkin and stop him late in that fight. Sergio Mora also said that he feels Canelo Alvarez would knock out Jamal Charlo. He's got too much power, but it's an exciting fight. So let me give my opinions on what, either of them will have to say. Well, Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin, that's a great fight. It's not a fight that I want to see. I think there's other fights out there that I'd rather see because I've already seen it twice. But Canelo Alvarez and Gennady Golovkin. Golovkin, obviously, he's a great fighter. Great fighter. He is now up in age, though. He's about 40 years of age. Golovkin is a guy who is as tough as nails. We all know that Golovkin in his prime his chin was like granite. It's like hitting a brick wall. That's how hard Golovkin was. Like, Golovkin never seen him hurt, wobbled, anything. Like, at least Canelo early on in his career, we've seen him wobbled. Like, there's I think there's Golovkin. I've not seen all his amateur career, but I don't think he's ever been hurt, dropped in his amateur career, and he's had so many amateur fights. And as a professional, I've seen most of his fights, never been hurt, wobbled, staggered, anything. The guy's a beast, absolute beast. But I'm not sure if Canelo, I think because Golovkin's got such a good chin, you can't really say that Canelo will stop him, or you can't be confident because Golovkin's never come close to being stopped. But if there's anyone that's going to stop Golovkin, it's Canelo Alvarez. I think the body shots, we saw against Derevyanchenko that Golovkin was a bit rattled a little bit by Derevyanchenko's body shots. And I think in that fight, we saw definitely old age, and we saw Golovkin on the slide. And Golovkin's been fairly inactive, while Canelo's been very active, and Golovkin is a lot older than Canelo. I feel like Golovkin's had a lot of fights, whereas I don't know if Canelo Alvarez I don't think he had an extensive amateur background like Golovkin. So you've got to take that into consideration. And then you've got to look at the fact that, Golovkin's had quite a few fights now, and he is up in age. So, Golovkin, there'll be a lot of wear and tear on his body. And I think there is a possibility that Canelo could stop him. I wouldn't put money on it because, like I said, Golovkin has got an iron cast chin and he's got a granite chin. And it wouldn't shock me if Golovkin was, able to take Canelo Alvarez's power even at this stage and manage to go to decision. But either way, I don't see Golovkin beating Canelo at this point in his career. I think Canelo Alvarez would dominate the fight a lot more than what he did in the first two fights. I think in the first two fights, Golovkin won the first. I think the second was very close. It were nip and tuck fights, both very close fights. I don't think this one will be close. I think Canelo will, in my opinion, dominate this one a lot easier because I think Canelo has improved massively. And I think Golovkin, since the Canelo fights, has been on the slide and he's getting older. So his feet aren't going to be what they used to be. And I just think Canelo Alvarez and the improvement that he's made, I just think might be too much for Golovkin at this stage of their careers. I think Golovkin is a guy that's been inactive. He's been on the slide. His skills are diminishing slowly. And Canelo Alvarez, on the other hand, there's no sliding with Canelo. There seems like he's just on the upward. He's 31 years of age. You can arguably make a case he's in his prime. He's in his best years right now. And it just seems to me like Canelo's getting better rather than, like, his performances aren't diminishing. They're improving. Whereas Golovkin, there's clear signs of diminishing there. There's clear signs of him, not being the fighter he once was. And that's why I think Canelo Alvarez has a very good chance of stopping Gennady Golovkin. I think the body shots the may take a lot of toll on Golovkin in this trilogy if they were to fight. In the first fight, I don't think Canelo went to the body because in order to go to the body, you're putting yourself in danger. and Golovkin had so much power, Canelo didn't want to put himself at risk. I do think Canelo Alvarez would throw a lot more body shots in this. And I do think there's a good chance that Golovkin could get hurt. Or we may see Golovkin hit the canvas for the first time in his career. It wouldn't shock me if they don't, but I don't see Golovkin winning this third fight. I just don't see. If Canelo took all his shots and his best shots in the first two fights, I don't see what's going to change in the third fight. But all I can see is Gennady Golovkin's output being a lot less, and I can see Canelo upping the pace a lot more, because I think Golovkin may not have the output, which means that Canelo's not going to be getting hit as much. I also think that since those fights, I think Canelo's defense has got better as well. I think regardless of Canelo's defense, I think Golovkin could penetrate that defense, because Golovkin will put a lot of pressure and he'd walk you down and corner you. So irrespective of how good Canelo's defense is, Golovkin will be landing a lot of shots, because in the first fight, if you remember, Canelo was being pushed back. In the second fight, Canelo fought a more aggressive fight, and he was actually pushing Golovkin back. So if Golovkin is able to push Canelo back, then the defense, he can still penetrate that defense. I just don't think Golovkin's got the legs anymore, because legs are, as you get older, legs are something that diminishes. Legs are something that get weaker. And legs are something that really supports your body, legs are what helps you take a shot. At the end of the day, if your legs aren't the same, when you get hit with a shot, your legs aren't going to be stable. So there's a good chance of you going over, because if your legs aren't stable or your legs aren't as strong, then the ability of you taking a punch, the ability of you walking guys down like Golovkin used to, aren't going to be there. So if Golovkin's legs aren't what they used to be, and his legs were very important, not just in him taking a shot, because we know that Golovkin's got a granite chin, but if your legs aren't the same, your ability to take a shot is not going to be the same. Your ability to move and the way Golovkin could do in his prime is not going to be the same. So Canelo Alvarez would have a very, very good chance of stopping Golovkin. I'm not saying Canelo will, but he has a very good chance. Now let's move on to Jermall Charlo. Sergio Mora believes that Canelo Alvarez has too much power for Jermall Charlo and he would stop him. I believe that Canelo has too much power as well. I think Canelo will break Jermall Charlo down. I don't think he'll knock Jermall Charlo out with one punch, but I think he would break Jermall Charlo down. I think Canelo's power is a type of power which breaks you down. It's like a what do you call it? A Komodo dragon. He bites you, and then eventually the poison gets into your body, slows you down, and then eventually you weaken, and then I think that's how Canelo is. Canelo hits you and keeps hitting you. And eventually, slowly starts breaking you down, starts weakening your body, and then eventually takes you out. That's how I feel Canelo deals. I feel like Canelo Alvarez, that I just think that he won't knock Jermall Charlo out cold, in the sense that knock him out with one punch. I don't see that. I see him breaking Charlo down, beating Charlo up, weakening Charlo, and then stopping him. That's how I see it. I think Charlo's a fairly strong, rugged, big guy. I think Charlo takes a good shot, but I just think the constant pressure of Canelo and the constant power. See, a lot of guys will be able to take, at 160, 168, will be able to take Canelo shots. Like someone like Amir Khan couldn't absorb Canelo shots because he was so much bigger, so much stronger. And when Canelo hit him, he went down. Charlo's different. Jermall's a lot bigger, stronger. He's got a very good chin. He's going to be able to absorb Canelo's shots. The only problem is for Jermall Charlo is that Canelo will start breaking you down, start wearing you down, and eventually, I feel like Canelo Alvarez will take over and probably stop Charlo. Don't get me wrong, Charlo's got a good jab. If he can keep Canelo at bay, if he can get Canelo to respect his power, and if Charlo is strong enough and he hits hard enough to get Canelo to respect his power, maybe he may have more success in the fight. I'm just not convinced about Charlo's power. I'm just not convinced about Charlo being able to keep Canelo off, because What people keep talking about Golovkin, oh, Golovkin's, Charlo's more athletic. He may be more athletic, but he doesn't have the power. He doesn't have the footwork of Golovkin. See, the power is very important because Canelo Alvarez couldn't walk Golovkin down because he knew that Golovkin has the type of power to really hurt him. So Canelo had to approach that fight with cautiousness. If Charlo isn't able to hurt Canelo and Canelo isn't hurt by Charlo's shots, Canelo's going to become very aggressive in that fight. And the problem is with Canelo, I don't care who you are, how tough you are, unless your name's Gennady Golovkin, Canelo Alvarez's power, if he keeps hitting you, is gonna wear you down. Simple as that. If your name isn't Gennady Golovkin, right, who I believe has probably got the best chin and one of the best chins in the history of the sport, right? Because Golovkin used to take a lot of flush shots on the chin, right? And there was no sign of him moving. So I don't see anybody having that kind of toughness, that kind of chin to be able to take Canelo Alvarez's shots. The only other guy I can think in the history of the sport is Marvin Hagler, who had an unbelievable chin, Golovkin-esque chin. That's the only other guy that I think had a chin like Golovkin. But I don't think Charlo has that kind of chin. If you look at Montiel was able to rock Charlo. And Canelo Alvarez hits a lot harder than Montiel. He's a lot stronger than Montiel. And he's also not just a headhunter. He's also a guy that hits you hard to the body. He wears you down with body shots. He slows you down, weakens you. And that's something that Charlo's going to have to take. So I think Sergio Mora's right. Canelo Alvarez has got too much power. I think it's the kind of power that wears you down, slows you down, and then knocks you out. That's the thing about Canelo. He hits too hard. Not so much one-punch knockout power. He's not a Wilder type puncher. But he's more of a guy that breaks you down, and he hits you so hard constantly is eventually you wear down and you break down. And that's the problem when you're fighting Canelo Alvarez for these guys, that it's not the one-punch knockout power. It's the constant pressure. It's the constant hitting you with the power that he has, and he has a lot of power. And he eventually will break you down. He eventually will break you down, and he eventually will force a stoppage. If you're not able to keep him off, if you're not able to keep Canelo Alvarez at bay, eventually he's going to wear you down and break you down. And that's why I think I agree with Sergio Mora that he will wear and stop Charlo in that fight. Because I just think that I don't think there's many guys out there that are going to be able to take Canelo's shots constantly. And Canelo is going to hit you with a lot of shots throughout the fight. So I just don't see Charlo being able to take that kind of punishment. But I might be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong, and maybe Charlo is able to absorb, Canelo's shots and maybe able to come back and stun Canelo. Who knows? But I am excited. I hope that fight happens next. It looks likely. It looks like Charlo is going to be the guy that Canelo fights. But what do you guys think? Do you guys think that Canelo stops Golovkin? Would Canelo stop Charlo? Leave your thoughts. Let me know what you think in the comment section below. And guys, remember to please like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.